Call to order the Berlin Planning Commission meeting for June 11th, 2025. Can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda? Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the minutes from May 14th. Does anyone have any changes or comments?
I'm not here.
Second. All in favor? I have it. Janelle, if you want to join us up here.
Yes, are you?
Not here. Logan, you can shift down in the juror spot number one.
Sure. Spot.
And then the first agenda on today is case PC 611-2502. Janelle Gerhofer is going to be standing in for Newt. Case PC 611-2502, Ocean East Phase 2B, Comprehensive Development Plan, Revised Emergency Access Design. If you guys could come up, introduce yourselves, and explain what's going on.
Good afternoon. My name is Blair Renier with Renier Development Company. This is Brock Parker, our civil engineer. I appreciate your time today with our request. I reviewed the staff report, and with your approval today, I'm prepared to move forward as proposed. Meet with the Berlin Fire Department, planning staff to make sure that both of the outlined conditions are met. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
What is the reasoning behind the change?
So originally, we have an access road that's designed, if you look at our drawing over here, to serve what was 120 acres. It is 120 acres, 90 on the south, 30 above it. And you can see the roundabout's kind of a central point to distribute traffic. We had to design this in what is Oceans East 2A. Oceans East 2A was originally Oceans East 2, and now it's split into 2A and 2B because we're in a different environment than we used to be with construction costs and interest rates, so we're building slower. We had to design that road, so when it was built, we knew the buildings were in the right place, but there never was an intention to build it in this phase right here. Access to those 96 units is provided through Oceans East 1 as you come into the clubhouse and the interior roundabout. So that's the why behind it, and you can see Oceans East 2B to the south is not served in any fashion by that part of the road. There will be an Oceans East next phase, which will be to the east of the blue roundabout, and that will be where the necessity of that extension will be required.
The fire department's happy.
Well, I want to meet with them. I do have an email from the county fire department, which uses a whole different way to access it. We have an improved construction entrance that goes, enters from Seahawk Road a little bit further north, closer to the high school. And I'll give you, for example, it's stabilized to the extent of handling full concrete trucks. So if you have an ambulance or a fire truck, it's adequately designed for that code. So we have that access point that comes from the north. We have the access that goes through Oceans East 1 through the main entrance. And now what we're proposing today in the red right here, that would be a second access. So we actually 3 different ways to get into the community.
So I talked to the fire department today, and they do have some big concerns.
Okay.
They said historically they've dealt with access roads in the past, and they kind of become secondary roads that aren't properly maintained or kind of active ones. And they said that the comments were that if there was an ambulance that needed to be on that road, it can become too bumpy for something that's strapped down on a gurney.
Okay. Well, this is a fully approved road to town standards. It's not going to be gravel. It's not going to be something car.
I get that, but it's not a day-to-day road that other people can use, right? This is a emergency vehicle service road.
It is. It will be blocked off with maybe a bollard or signage to that effect, not intended to be used by the residents, but we wouldn't let it deteriorate. In short order, before a road would go through its life cycle, this blue portion of the road will have to be built for the coming phase.
And to be clear, the portion in red of the Blue Patch Road will be constructed in accordance with the same road standards for the rest of the project. So it's going to be the same stabilization, same asphalt thickness as the rest of the road.
just seems to me that fire department's happy, I'm happy.
Okay.
So that's kind of the concern here. My conversation wasn't that they were happy about it.
So whatever we do as do a rule, I would suggest we make it subject to fire department review approval.
And I believe that's how the condition was set in the notes from the planning staff, and that's what planning did, just sit down together, the three of us, fire department, planning staff, and me, and make sure, they're satisfied with it.
I'm just a little unclear, because is the end product, when everything's built, is this you're gonna have some trees there, or Center Boulevard, is that what's gonna be in the end?
Between the two in the blue,
Yeah.
yeah, right now, if you go in Ocean's East, you'll see there's a big grassy median,
Yeah.
kind of just slows traffic down, gives a
That's
better
gonna stay.
feel. Yes.
Okay, that is to the end product looks like.
Yep.
Pete, just to your point, on one of these pages, 13 to 30, it talks about the original design of the road should continue for the fire department. So I know what you're saying, where if it was a conditional approval upon Berlin Fire Department's approval, which would make sense. Because, like I said, they have some concerns.
I'm assuming there's also going to be no parking signs as well. This way it doesn't impede any emergency vehicle traffic as well.
On the access road?
You're right.
Right. There wouldn't be any resident use of that road.
There wouldn't be an overflow for any of the residents
No,
parking.
what I envision is there's knockdown bollards that you can drive a vehicle through, but you wouldn't do it if you were in a non-emergency vehicle.
Okay.
What we'd like to do to the extent possible, show you here. Right here, that's our roundabout right in front of the clubhouse. And to the extent possible, we'd like to direct a lot of our resident traffic in front of the townhouse, or the clubhouse. That's where we communicate with our folks. That's where they come in. We've got a nice pool and community amenity. And that's a good way for us to have a stronger relationship with the individuals and just have it kind of get on the main road and go back out to the street.
Is the final intention to put the traffic circle in once it gets to greater phases?
It is. That has been designed to serve the future phases as well as this specific phase. And then we'll see this going up on drawing to serve the phase after 2B. Up on drawing being east.
Any comments down there?
I see that there's a condition on here on the recommendations of staff. Identification, if necessary, expansion of areas for emergency vehicle turnaround and staging near building 1 throughout phase 2. Is that going to create any problems?
Not at all. I saw that. And so this blue piece was approved in the past and met fire department requirements. If you notice, the road's not any narrower than it was in the past, and it's always been a single lane road separated by a median. So if you're coming in EMS right now, and you come here, and come around here to any of these buildings, it's not much different in the linear nature. It would be to come in here and then come this way, in linear feet, or to come in this way. So as far as access and how close they are to the buildings, not much is changing. We're connecting here instead of coming down here the same length, and then you can come in here and go both ways. As far as the staging area, there's a very nice open paved area here where there's no parking. It'd be a great staging area. They could obviously stage in here too, and there's another place right here where there's not parking where they can stage. So you have access to buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4. And like I mentioned before, the construction entrance comes right here. It goes right out to Seahawk Road, providing a third way to reach Seahawk Road.
I still stand on, I'm kind of struggling with the fact that this is a emergency service road. And when I talk to the emergency service people, they have concerns. And, it'll be voted on however, but I really think there needs to be communication for their blessing for this.
Well,
Because
that's-
this is their word.
Absolutely, and that is the condition that we're going to meet together and confirm.
So to say approval's been contingent upon
Their
their blessing.
Because other than that, I honestly have no problem.
Okay, and I want to get their feedback, and, you know, I feel certain that that will be something that we can work together as a great plan.
Mr. Renier, and this could be the staff report, it could be an error, whatever, but it says you're asking, your applicant is asking for the removal of the previously planned roundabout, but I understood your answer to your question was asked, you would build it in future development. So you're not really removing, you're just asking that you be able to just construct this emergency lane, the red, is that correct?
That's correct. And
So
we-
the blue is going to still stay there. It will be constructed at a later date if you're going to build other development out there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's my understanding you have no problem having that three-way meeting to
No,
determine
no,
that.
I think that's a good way to get it done. Hopefully, we can sit down together and talk about what makes it work. I know Brock, from an engineering perspective, has done all the radius for, you know, emergency vehicles and fire trucks. So we comply from an engineering perspective, but they might have some practical requests that we can satisfy that would give them some additional level of comfort.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I would move that we conditionally approve this based on the recommendations of the staff, and I'm just going to read them, that there be confirmation for the Berlin Fire Company that the revised Atlantic Lane connection, elimination of the roundabout still meet emergency access requirements. I just don't like the word elimination of the roundabout. I don't want to eliminate it, but I would like them to meet in regard to the construction of the emergency access requirement and identification of necessary expansion areas for emergency vehicle turnaround staging near building 1 and through phase 2, and then ensure future development phases incorporate consistent circulation logic and do not rely solely on single point connections. And that, if you can follow that motion, that's what
You got that down?
I take out the elimination. All right, thank you.
The recording's got it.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Item number 6, case PC-6-11-25-03, application for rezoning request, 10,009 Old Ocean City Boulevard, tax map 0025, parcel 57. You guys can introduce yourselves. That would be greatly appreciated.
I'm going to be the middle.
He must be away from me.
These two of us.
For the record, Mark Spencer Cropper, 6200 Coastal Highway, Suite 200, Ocean City, Maryland. And I'm the attorney for Coastal Ventures Properties LLC, who is the applicant I'm representing for the purposes of this rezoning. Seated to my immediate right is Sandy Gillis, and then to her right is Palmer Gillis. Palmer is the principal of Coastal Venture Properties LLC, seeking the rezoning. Just tell me when you're ready for me to proceed, Mr. Chairman.
You're good. Okay.
So, tab 1 in the binder I've given you, you probably already have provided by staff, which is the actual form application for the rezoning, seeking to rezone the subject property from R1 Residence District to B2 Shopping District. And in addition to that, if you go to tab number 2, that is simply a deed for the subject property. And I'm going to put that here simply for the purpose of making the record. Tab number 3 is a copy of a contract that was entered into between the applicant, Coastal Ventures Properties LLC, and the town of Berlin for the acquisition of what is known as parcel 57, which is what's the subject of the hearing, and to be more particular, tax map 25, grid 9, parcel 57, which is the same property identified in the deed, which is the earlier tab I just referred to. Among other things, I'm not going to go through all of the details of this land disposition agreement, but one of the conditions of closing on this acquisition is this rezoning. Without this property being rezoned from R1 to B2 as requested, this contract does not go forward, the closing does not happen, the project does not go forward, and that's in this agreement. Item tab number 4 is an MDE, no further requirements determination. It's been recorded in the land records for Worcester County at LIBOR 4594, folio 728. The most important part of this document is on the first page in bold print, about halfway down. I'll read it for the record. The Maryland Department of the Environment, hereinafter referred to as the Department, determines it has no further requirements related to the investigation of the controlled hazardous substances or oil identified at the 68.22 acre Tyson Chicken Inc. property located at 9943 Old Ocean City Boulevard, Berlin, Maryland, if the property is used for unrestricted commercial or unrestricted industrial purposes. That's very important because the protections provided by this letter apply to this property provided it is developed and utilized for commercial or industrial purposes. And again, the property is zoned R1 residential, and we are seeking to zone it B2 for the commercial and retail uses proposed by Coastal Ventures Properties. Tab 5 of the binder is a copy of the Town of Berlin comprehensive zoning map. All that's doing is showing for the record that the property is presently zoned R1. Tab 6 is a land use map, and that land use map from the Town of Berlin indicates the property is consistent with the comprehensive plan designation of neighborhood commercial. Because we are proceeding on the basis of mistake and or change in the character of the neighborhood to justify the rezoning, tab number 7 is a Google Earth photograph of essentially the entire town of Berlin, again, for the purpose of defining the neighborhood. Now, I will also refer you to tab 8. Tab 8 is a portion of the town of Berlin, which is inclusive of the subject property, wherein I've defined the neighborhood to the north as Route 50, to the south Franklin Avenue, to the east Route 113, and to the west 818, in the event that the Planning Commission does not want to define the neighborhood for the purposes of this rezoning as the entirety of the town of Berlin, and wants a more refined, restricted definition of the neighborhood. That's why I have included both tabs 7 and 8, depending upon which way the Planning Commission wishes to proceed. With regard to the mistake argument, I think that's a very easy argument under the circumstances, because this property, as you all well know, has been utilized as the Tyson poultry processing plant for decades, and yet it's zoned R1 residential. So the use that's been on this property for decades is an industrial use, but it's zoned residential. I believe that in and of itself is a mistake. It's also inconsistent with the land use map that I referred to in the binder. As far as a change in the character of the neighborhood, whether you define the neighborhood as the entirety of the town of Berlin or the more refined and restricted definition in tab 8. Again, you have a residentially zoned parcel of land on which there has been an industrial use which is now owned by the town of Berlin. The town of Berlin has no intention of continuing the industrial use on that property. In fact, it's going to be utilized much, much differently. Part of the proposed redevelopment of the Tyson property is parcel 57, which is under contract by Coastal Venture Properties LLC for retail/commercial uses. So there has been a change in the character of the neighborhood to the extent you have a very significant industrial use on the property, which has been dormant now for many years. It's never going to resume to being an industrial use. It's only going to be utilized as approved by the town of Berlin, and part of the principal reuse of the property, again, is that which is proposed by Coastal Venture Properties, which is essentially retail and commercial. So that in and of itself is a change in the character of the neighborhood that would warrant the rezoning, even if the planning commission and ultimately the mayor and council didn't find it to be mistakenly zoned. But again, I think the mistake argument is a very easy one under the circumstances. With regard to changing the character of the neighborhood and the applicable sections of the Maryland Land Use Code annotated, section 4-204, I will very briefly address those criteria. But before I do, Mr. Gillis, you just heard me represent the Planning Commission the contents of the binder, which I'm going to ask you marked as applicant's exhibit number 1 for identification. You concur in all respects with the contents of the binder and my explanation of why the contents of that binder are presented for the purposes of this rezoning. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And you further concur with my representation and arguments as to why this rezoning can be justified not only on the basis of the state, but changing the character of the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to population change, we are not proposing that there has been any significant population change in the neighborhood. There has been a change, but it's not a significant change, so any change in the population will not in and of itself warrant the rezoning. You would agree with that, correct?
Yes.
As far as availability of public facilities, this property has always, when it was an industrial plant, it was utilizing town of Berlin utilities, and upon its redevelopment, both by the town of Berlin and parcel 57, you would be utilizing town of Berlin facilities, which would be water, sewer, and then whatever electricity is also provided to the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, there is no limited supply or shortage of any of those utilities, and your uses proposed for the site could be more than accommodated by those services, correct?
Yes.
As far as present and future transportation patterns, you all are probably more familiar with the property than anybody, but you've got two major roadways. You've got Route 50 to the north, 113 to the east, 818 to the west, considered Main Street, Berlin, coming from Route 50 right down to downtown Berlin, and you have the normal town of Berlin road network within the town, all of which would more than accommodate the uses you're proposing on the site for not only the local patrons, but also guests to the town of Berlin that may also want to patronize the site after you develop it. Is that correct?
Yes.
No new significant road improvements would be necessary to accommodate your redevelopment of the site, other than what the town of Berlin is proposing to do anyway for its own needs, correct?
Yes.
As far as compatibility with existing and proposed development for the area, I would respectfully submit to the Planning Commission that what's proposed by Coastal Venture Properties LLC is more compatible than what was the Tyson poultry processing plant when it was in operation. And again, that site has remained dormant, so the redevelopment activities proposed by Coastal Venture Properties, which are also reflected in the agreement that's in your binder, the agreement between Coastal Venture and the town. That agreement specifies what the uses are that will be allowed on this site, should it be rezoned and should it be developed. Those uses clearly will be consistent with the surrounding neighborhood and the needs of the town of Berlin, in light of the fact that the mayor and council of the town of Berlin specifically identified those uses and incorporated them as terms and conditions of the contract. Would you agree?
Yes.
Item number, section 4204B5 is the recommendation of the planning commission, which we would hope would make a favorable recommendation for the rezoning. And number 6, the relationship of the proposed amendment to the local jurisdiction's plan, meaning comprehensive plan. I would submit to you that not only the map that is tab number 6 in applicant's exhibit number 1, but the other contents of the Town of Berlin Comprehensive Plan specifically state that commercial retail development is to be supported throughout the Town of Berlin, provided there are adequate utilities and road networks to accommodate those uses, and those uses are compatible with the surrounding areas. Mr. Gillis, do you agree with everything I've said and all the documents I've referred to?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Thank you for saying yes.
Anything else?
I want to bring that to the attention.
Oh, okay. So tab number 3, which is the agreement, I'll direct your attention to page 22, which is section 8.3 of the agreement, and it's entitled Prohibited Uses. Again, should the rezoning be approved, should the closing take place, should the development occur, the property shall not be used in whole or in part for any of the following uses identified as prohibited uses: pawn shops, gun shops, tanning salons, massage parlors, adult video bookshops, adult entertainment facilities, check cashing facilities, gambling facilities, tattoo parlors, or liquor stores. So that is specifically in the contract, in case that would be of concern to any of the planning commission members in making the planning commission recommendation to the mayor and council. That'll be our presentation.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I represented Mrs. Gillis in a matter, commercial matter in Ocean City. Are we okay with
Yeah, I
that?
think you're fine with it. You know, like that's the interest in this. Anyone have any comments?
One question. At tab 4, the letter from the Maryland Department of the Environment.
Yes.
If the property is used for unrestricted commercial tier 2B, what to you does the word unrestricted commercial mean?
Whatever the Maryland Department of the Environment says it is. Obviously, the town of Berlin provided this document to Coastal Venture Properties as the negotiations began to draft the agreement. But the specifics of the unrestricted commercial tier 2B or unrestricted industrial tier 3B, if you'll go, Mr. Cosby, to the next couple pages, look at page 2 of 7 and 3 of 7. So 2 of 7 under land use control, at the bottom it says, there's no further requirements. Determination is conditioned on certain uses of the property, tier 2A or 3A, or to the maintenance of certain conditions, tier 1B, 2B, or 3B. So it then defines under that tier 2A. If you go to the next page, tier 2 is commercial. And it says planned use of the property that allows exposure and access by the general public, workers, and other expected users, including customers, patrons, or visitors. commercial purposes allow access to the property and duration consistent with a typical business day. Tier 2 properties typically include shopping centers, retail businesses, vehicle service stations, medical offices, hotels, office spaces, religious institutions, restaurants, and apartment buildings that have commercial use on the first floor. And A, unrestricted, no land use controls are imposed on the property for commercial uses. So I consider unrestricted, meaning those commercial uses are allowed without restriction. That's what it means to me, because they defined it right in the approval. Same thing under Tier 3 industrial. So I think it is as it's defined on page 2 of the document.
Thank you.
Mr. Cropper, do you know what your client's intended use is?
Yes, and if you go to, I don't know if you know the exact page of the agreement. It's in the agreement.
Plan,
Is that?
plan.
It's in the plan. And there's also a definition. So if you go to Exhibit D of the agreement, that gives you a developer's phase concept plan for the project. That's the last page, but then in the body of the document, if you'll give me a minute, I'll find it for you. You'll find it before I do. Exhibit D is the, yeah, that, it's in the document, the project. Hold on a second.
Is it in definitions? Or
Yeah, I think it's in definitions. Hold on.
But I think,
Okay, so on page 5 of the agreement,
Which
it's in
tab is this?
this is tab 3. Go to page 5, at the very bottom, it lists, it identifies the project, means the office or retail improvements and associated parking to be constructed on the property in 2 phases. So it's office or retail improvements is how it's been defined for the purposes of the agreement.
You are not,
But without the prohibited uses that we already read.
you are not going to do residential on top. I know it kept going back and forth.
No.
We're not.
No, okay.
No.
It's not even an option anymore. We're fine with that.
It says that.
This might sound silly, but does retail include restaurants?
That's not what we're planning on, sure.
Okay.
Quite honestly, we don't know yet what's going to go there, but it'll be consistent with those provisions in the agreement.
Well, I would say, I mean, I was going to make both arguments. The neighborhood has changed drastically. And we all know that. Look at the restaurants that are on the street on that same boulevard now, and it's kind of a little, that area is developing some character now, finally. And obviously, thank God, it's not going to go back to the industrial heavy use it had in the past. So this is certainly a lighter use parcel. So, all good stuff.
Mr. Cropper, in your research in this, we talked about this earlier, the commission, do you know when the town of Berlin, we couldn't find it, changed it to R1? Was it after Tyson was there? Obviously.
I couldn't find it.
We can't put this, it looks like the zoning was back in like 1988, and then it says just revised.
Yeah.
I can't find.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I was stunned when I prepared for this and we first got into this, and I realized it was R1. I actually didn't believe it at first, that we were seeking a change of zoning from R1. I knew what we were going to. I couldn't believe what it was, for the very reason that the Tyson plant's been there, well, as long as I can remember. I mean, a long time, so I don't know.
Maybe someone included.
Can I speak to that also?
Resident.
I can't tell you specific dates, but it would have been after the town purchased it. It was zoned to R1 because the intent was to turn the entire thing into a park. And so that was the reasoning behind that. At that time, the intent was the entire property would be part of a park.
But there's no record of that change?
No, there is. I just don't have it, I don't have it at hand. I will tell you that I went through a period about 9-10 months ago of trying to correct a number of zoning and annexation issues with the state Department of Assessments, and that may have been one of them.
When did the town buy it?
2016?
Okay.
February 12th, 2016 is the date on the tab 2.
I mean, I can certainly pull that resolution.
No, I just worried around, not for my general knowledge, you're fine. Anyone else have any comments?
I have a couple comments, just that the comp plan as it's written, I mean, one of the goals is to promote business and job opportunities along this exact corridor. So what you're proposing seems to be moving forward for that. In terms of defining the neighborhood, I don't know if we have to pick one or the other, but if we do, I think it would be better to go with tab number 8, so we have a more focused view on what the neighborhood is in that specific area.
I don't know if our approval has to just take the reason or not. Does it? Do you know, Dirk?
Only if you're proceeding only on changing the character of the neighborhood, you have to agree to a definition of the neighborhood. I think that's what the law is. But again, from my perspective, it makes no difference whether you do it on mistake, changing the character, or whether you choose 7 or 8.
As long as it's approved.
I'd be fine with both.
Am I correct that if we recommend this, this is going to go to the council, correct?
Yes.
Because I feel like, from what we were just told, that it must have been the council was the movement when they were in R1. So we effectively would be going against it, or if we recommend it, that it was going to be a part, and now we're going to go and say, no, we recommend it to go to, right?
Yep.
But the council would have the opportunity at that point. They decided that we were going against with their.
We're just making a recommendation. We're not.
That's right.
And Mr. Woodson, I think there's a member of the council here that's willing to come forward and speak and support this.
There is someone.
Yeah.
Jay, is there anything you want to say?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm in full support of this project as a town resident and a council member. We firmly believe that Coastal Ventures will do a great job rehabbing this derelict property, so it'll be a nice addition to the town of Berlin. So we want to see it happen.
Thank you.
I read in here at one point that you did not commit to what buildings would be removed or what demolition was going to be done. That's not been decided at this point.
To the extent I know, the demolition that was completed under the town grant is completed.
It's completed.
Correct. I mean, there may be some minor demolition, but nothing of any significance. If you look at the exhibit, it utilizes the existing buildings in the tab 3, the last sheet, where the sketch shows the existing buildings. Exhibit D.
A lot of parking.
Well, when you change the use to this, you have to meet code. You have to meet the town's code. Darn. We always try to exceed the codes, so just FYI on parking.
Councilman Nur, I appreciate your opinion. Does that sound like it's the rest of the council's opinion as well?
That's my belief, yes.
The majority.
And
Good to know.
for,
The majority.
well, and quite honestly, for the record, the mayor and council consented to the application for the rezoning, which they had to do as the owner of the property. So it would be a stretch to believe they would support the rezoning, for filing the application, but not the ultimate decisions.
Any comments from the audience? Anyone else have anything? Anyone want to make a motion?
Well, I don't know that it's necessary that our approval even be given under the statute, but they're looking for our approval. Looks like we've got a good case for mistake and substantial change. Change seems to derive more from a change in the philosophy of where the town wants to go with this property than anything else. But we can all get philosophical about it, but I think there's a good case to be made both ways.
I think that the indication would be you would either recommend to the mayor and council that they proceed with the rezoning, or you would recommend that they do not proceed. But either way, the mayor and council has to hold a public hearing.
Right.
So that's what they're really looking for.
Exactly, they're the hearing body, so.
Right.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve,
Recommend.
recommend the rezoning under theory.
I would second that.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys want to keep these? Please. If you use these for the dog, fine, I want to use mine.
It's on you, it's procedure. The advertising done. Okay, all right. We'll definitely confirm that one way or the other, but that's what we're looking at, is July 14th.
So, thank you.
That's the intent, yes. I don't know what else started on that agenda, but July 14th, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I was checking to make sure you were going out of town.
Mark,
Yeah.
can you ask Jay to come?
There's some. As there's no public, so no comments there, any comments from staff? Any comments from the commission?
I have a question, Barry. Does that recommendation extend to parcel 52?
No, just 57.
Just 57, okay.
Mary, one question, because now that Dirk's in the same community, I'm hearing it. Is there any movement or anything about sidewalks down 346 towards the three groups of townhouses?
That is a state highway.
So that would only be, is there something grant-related that Berlin can tie into, or only the state can deal with that?
I won't go as far as to say only the state can deal with it, but it is a state highway, so it would be in their hands ultimately. The town has worked with state highway in the past on, for instance, sidewalks on Broad Street, but it has to be done under their umbrella, so to speak.
Like, I know we're not just sitting flush with cash and we want to start building sidewalks, I get that. But is there any way we could reach out and try and look into it? It'll always be my concern, like, it was fine when it was just Purnell Crossing with 27 kids, and there was maybe 1 or 2 kids. There's like 15 now, his dad got cut off, I see little kids in like 4-wheelers on the highway.
Yeah, the mayor is actually at a meeting this evening. State Highway holds an annual elected officials, I won't call it a social, but that's sort of what it is. And it is his intent to actually raise that with them again at that meeting this evening, so.
It's just you kidding.
Yeah.
We all know.
Yeah, I mean, we collect impact fees for a reason. That's what that money should be used for, something like that. That's what it's there for.
And
It should be a priority.
I just use Professor Google, and there are both federal and state grants for sidewalks. I think it's based under safety and that. And then I was told, and I forget who told me this, that, and I think it's been years ago, that Berlin does have, I'll call it a comprehensive sidewalk plan somewhere that we could see, because they were telling me that it actually goes out Main Street to past Worcester. It literally goes like the Boomers or whatever and brings all the way into Broad Street, and then it would do all Ocean City Road also. And I think this brings it to our attention when we see that we're going to have this kind of development there also. And I know that we've done the sidewalks to know where we require them to put the sidewalks in, that they're not connected. It would sure be nice if we could get the state to agree that under a safety issue, because I agree. I see people pushing minor children in strollers down Old Ocean City Road, sometimes on the wrong side of the road, not knowing you walk against traffic versus walking with traffic.
There's no right way.
And be assured that the town, the mayor and council is definitely in support of sidewalks on that road. But we're somewhat limited in our ability to just move forward and do it.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have two here, Preston.
Can I have somebody younger off the
Yeah, that would be
You did
good.
the
I didn't
minutes.
expect it to be a big lift.
You did. They are very, very comprehensive. Thank you. Yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Sure, yeah, actually, yeah. Actually,